Good evening, everyone, and for people joining from the US, it's good morning. So welcome to the
So we can start.
26th ProConnect series, hosted by the Alumni Association of Sri Venkateshwara College of Engineering. I'm Nitin Balaji, the moderator for the session. I am an alumnus of 2009 batch from the EC department, and I'm delighted to have Kausalya also officiating alongside with me. So for all the listeners, you'll find links to the alumni portal and the LinkedIn page here on the screen. So if you're an alumnus of the college, we encourage you to register on this portal to stay up to date with all the association activities. So if you're a student as well, you can also do that to keep track of the activities of the association. Moving on, we are very honored to have Anu Chetty, a distinguished alumnus of the college from the Electrical Engineering Department, and she graduated in 1997. So Anu brings an extensive experience in the field of Medtech, with expertise spanning across embedded software, signal and image processing, software, hardware, and systems engineering. And she's currently a senior director of R&D at Philips Medtech, and has held various technical and leadership roles throughout her career, including in Johnson & Johnson and Hewlett Packard. So Anu holds a Master of Science in Electrical Engineering degree from the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. So she brings over a decade of experience in all the leading companies, and has a significant focus on the niche field of ultrasonics, which is also close to me because I've worked on it for quite a long time. And she'll be sharing her invaluable insights on the future of MedTech with us today during this call. So a gentle reminder to the audience, please feel free to ask any questions after the talk by using the chat box, or you can also use the raise a hand feature that is available there. So we'll probably look at the questions and then we can put up you for the, pose a question to the speaker. And I'm sure we're going to have a very interactive session today. Without further ado, I think over to you, Anu.
Oh, thank you, Nathan. It's grateful to be here. I'll give a quick introduction and a minor clarification. I graduated in 1999, so that's okay. Yeah. So I'm Anu Chetty, and I graduated from Venkateshwara College of Engineering with an electrical and electronics engineering degree in 1999. I currently, as Nitin said, I work as a senior director for R&D in Philips within their imaging portfolio, handling systems and also driving their AI strategy. Focus is mainly in ultrasound. As I said, I'm thrilled to be here to discuss this world of medical technology in the intersection of clinical applications and tech, how it's evolved over the years and how it's shaping the future of healthcare. We'll maybe just double click and take a closer look at ultrasound technology, something that I work with closely, and I know Nitin is also in that field. And we'll also explore some of the critical skill sets needed to develop and innovate in this field. So, do want to talk a little bit about what type of engineering skill sets you would need to actually grow in this field. So with that, maybe if you can move to the next slide, Nitin. Yeah, so as you can see here, I'm not sure if we're seeing the slides moving.
Is it not?
Yeah,
slide 3.
Yeah, now I can see it. All right. So, with, as I'd mentioned, right, the medical technology is an incredibly diverse field, encompassing various industries, and each playing such a pivotal role in modern healthcare. So, as you can see here, diagnostic imaging on the left, think about tools like X-rays, CT scans, and MRIs, and ultrasound, right? These technologies have revolutionized how we diagnose diseases. Instead of invasive procedures, we can now see inside the body with incredible clarity, enabling early and accurate diagnosis, which directly impacts treatment success. You may have family or friends who've been through some of these hard situations, and the advent of these technologies has really helped with preventive treatment diagnosis versus having to do invasive treatment. And imagine how much more difficult it would be to treat conditions like cancer without these imaging tools, right? So it's really moving in the direction we want. And then if you think about medical devices, right, this category includes life-saving devices. You may have heard about pacemakers. They regulate heart rhythms, insulin pumps for diabetes management, prosthetic limbs, right, for those people in sports management. They have all, also seen amazing advancements, improving mobility and quality of life, right? Now you see more robotic surgeries as well entering this scene where um, they are helping orthopedic surgeons and general surgeons with unparalleled precision and reducing recovery times for patients. So they don't have to stay in the hospital for long because of how precise these equipments are with their algorithm, being able to give you patient-specific outcomes, right? So imagine surgeons operating with a robotic arm, right? That they can make incisions smaller than the human hand could ever achieve. So these are truly transformative, right? We're starting to impact humankind in a very different way, which is what medical technology is all about, right? Using technology to really have that impact. And then the last on the right is biotech that harnesses biological processes and living organisms to create new drugs and therapies. I'd say this field is at the heart of personalized medicine, right? By understanding our genetic makeup, biotech innovations allow these type of treatments to be tailored to individual patients, making them more effective and reducing side effects. So again, if I take cancer as an example, you could have targeted cancer therapies, which can now attack specific cancer cells without harming healthy ones, right? This is where biotech plays a role with different types of disease pathologies, right? So with that, maybe if you can move to slide 3. Oh, sorry, slide 4.
Yeah.
So a decade of innovation, we talked about the various applications, but how has medical technology evolved through the last 10 years? I mean, we can go and look at it for the last 30 years, but I've tried to just keep it to like the last 10 years, right? Smartphones, as you know, are healthcare tools. And around this time, I think smartphones started to become more than just communication devices. 2013, the app started tracking fitness, diet, even medication reminders. So they were kind of like our personal health assistants, right? This was the beginning, I'd say, of patient taking more control over their health data. Then 2015, you started seeing wearables gaining traction, right? Fitbit, Apple Watch started monitoring vital signs like heart rate, sleep patterns, oxygen levels. These wearables actually empowered people to keep tabs of their health in real time, right? So again, an example of preventive care rather than reactive treatments. Around 2018, you started seeing more AI, big data started evolving into AI, and artificial intelligence began to play a crucial role in medical imaging and other areas as well. Now, you can think about it. Algorithms could now analyze scans to detect anomalies often more accurately than even human radiologists can. That's how this is a game changer in the fields like oncology, cardiology, lot of spaces, right? It's starting that there's a merge, a fine merge that's happening between medicine and technology, where we are able to detect certain things. So that's key to survival. And then around 2022, and where we are right now, we'll talk a little bit about that, is telemedicine is becoming mainstream, right? The pandemic COVID has accelerated telemedicine's growth, but even beyond COVID, virtual consultations and remote patient monitoring have become standard now. Patients are able to consult doctors from the comfort of their homes, breaking down barriers to access, right? Especially in rural areas, if you think about it. So lot of development in the last 10 years, and it's only going to have a multiplier effect in the future. With that, if you could move to the next slide.
Is it this? Yeah.
Yep. So power of diagnostics. So, I'm going to click a little more into diagnostics because that's the area I work in or have had, 2 decades of experience. But I just wanted to give you a landscape of all of the various applications. So it's not a small field, right? We're going to narrow down a little bit now. Diagnostics are like the backbone of modern medicine, right? Without accurate diagnosis, treatment is more like a guessing game. You can imagine you go to the doctor, and if they don't have proper diagnostic tools, they will not be able to really diagnose what the issue is, and patients start getting frustrated. You probably have people in your family who are like probably complaining, I go to the doctor and they keep asking me to come back, or I don't really know what's going on, I'm still in the hospital. These are things you want to avoid, right? So early detection, early diagnosis can mean the difference between life and death sometimes. For example, if we take oncology or cancer, for example, again, right, detecting it in the early stages vastly improves survival rates. We know this. So diagnostic tools allow us to identify diseases before symptoms even appear, giving the patients an ability to, the fighting chance. Now, if you get into like a personalized medicine, diagnostics provide detailed insights into your health profile. That means you can maintain a tailored specificity to your needs, improving efficacy and maximizing side effects. So it's not a one size fits all, right? This is really customizing to your needs, the patient's needs. So eventually improving patient care. Without accurate diagnostic tools, like I said, healthcare professionals are going to not be able to make better informed decision. So continuous glucose monitoring devices, you may have seen them in the diabetes fields, right? Heart monitors, they all manage conditions more effectively, even outside the hospital. So before you come to the hospital, you kind of know where you need to go. So that's the power of diagnostics, which we'll talk a little more with ultrasound. Next slide. So now moving into the field of what ultrasound is, right, and what the applications are. Before we get into the product side of ultrasound and the breakdown of the device, I think it's important to understand the application of a particular field, right? You make technology for the betterment of humankind. You don't make technology for the sake of technology, right? And so this is a classic example of that, right? So it's a technology that's existed for, I'd say, more than 40 years, but it's evolving very fast, right? I'd say it's one of the most versatile tools in medical imaging because of the non-invasive nature of ultrasound. CT exists, X-ray exists, but ultrasound is essentially a good way to get a magnifying glass into the body, but not with invasive technologies like X-ray. So cardiology, one of the main applications of ultrasound, is essential for diagnosing your heart conditions. So it helps monitor blood flow, assess heart valve function, guides procedures like stent replacements, right? Like you've probably heard about people getting stent placements through intervention. And like I said, it's non-invasive, quick, and provides real-time results, which is very crucial during cardiac emergencies, right? Um, what it avoids is some of the other very lethal things like cardiac arrests, heart attacks that could lead to death, right? Preventive, as I talked about, preventive diagnosis. Then if you get into obstetrics, right? Most people are familiar with ultrasound in pregnancy, right? They monitor fetal growth, detect abnormalities, and ensure the baby's health throughout the gestation. This is a critical tool for expecting parents and healthcare providers alike. I'm sure you've heard of people or family members getting ultrasound for this. General imaging, that's beyond the heart and pregnancy. Ultrasounds used to examine organs like the liver, kidney, gallbladder. It's also used to detect tumors, cysts, and other abnormalities in soft tissues. Point of care, I put it in there as well. That is also an up and coming emerging field. When you think about Africa or some remote places in India, in emerging settings, ultrasound can be a lifesaver. So you've probably seen handheld ultrasound, people carrying like a tablet with a probe. It's used for quick assessments, whether it's checking for internal bleeding in trauma patients or guiding needle placements in critical procedures. So we kind of have different segments. I just wanted to show you that overview. Next slide. So this just, I won't get there's a lot of details here, but I won't go into too much, right? I'll just try to give a high level overview of how ultrasound works. This is for those with the engineering mind, right? So basically, you can think of sound waves, right? The ultrasound machine emits high frequency sound waves through a transducer. right? And there's a lot of signal processing that happens through that, where electrical energy is converted into sound energy. Before, it used to use piezoelectric devices. Now there's modern technology. We have crystal technology and synchronous technology that allows for more cohesive transformation of those sound waves, right? This device is actually placed on the skin. You've probably seen the ultrasound placed on the skin if you think about pregnancy, right? And after applying a conducive gel to ensure that the sound waves can actually travel effectively and efficiently, because you need a medium and you don't want to lose it in air, right? As these sound waves move through the body, they bounce off tissues of various densities, right? Now, within our body, you have muscles, organs, bones. The denser the tissue, the more sound waves are reflected back. So think of it that way, right? So you can imagine there are different types of frequency probes that engineers are designing, because you want the reflection. The reflection is going to be different depending on the medium, right? The density of the medium. So you have high frequency probes for general imaging. You have low frequency probes for cardiology, because in cardiology, there's moving pieces, right? Heart. And you actually lose a lot of signal. In engineering, we call it signal to noise ratio, right? You lose a lot of signal because you have bones in between the heart and the skin, and you actually will lose a lot of important signal if you don't use low frequency, right? We talk about all this high frequency. You need more precision when you're more close to the skin, right? So that's why you actually use high frequency process. So fundamentally, there's a lot of engineering involved, translating the clinical application. And then once that image is reflected from the body, the sound wave, right, comes back to the system again. That is where image creation happens, right? The machine collects these reflected waves and processes them into creating real-time images that you see, like the beating heart, or an anomaly that you can see in the lung. These images help doctors visualize internal structures and detect these anomalies instantly. So that's the overview of how the device works. I mean, there's a lot to it, right? I'm not going to get into the details of it today, because this alone requires a lot of, you can go to the next slide. It shows a little more in depth of all the different modes that exist in ultrasound, right? So there's B mode scanning, which is 2D image scanning, color Doppler, right? There's continuous wave Doppler, pulse wave Doppler that helps with blood flow through your arteries and veins, tells you where the blockages are, just high level, right? Spectral Doppler, there's enhanced ultrasound contrast, which gives you a little more double click into some of your precision and into the general imaging field. Shear wave, which is a new field in general imaging, where you can actually detect the density of these tissue structures, right? To know if something is cancerous versus not, right? Based on the density of the tissue. 3D is a very a field that's been out for a while, right? Gives you more clarity, because with 3D and 4D imaging now you can see the organs much better, because you have a better visual effect of your organs, right? So these are different types of modes, right? But you need a lot of different types of transducers, as I've shown on the top, right? You have linear arrays, you have curved arrays, you have phased arrays, different frequencies. Beamforming is the mechanism, that's the fundamental mechanism by which images are formed back in the systems. And then I've just given a view of the transducer, like how much in-depth that technology is, right? Like there's single crystal technology, there's various technology that you really need to use to actually get those sound waves in a cohesive manner into the body. So this is kind of the overview. We won't get into too much detail here, but yeah, so this is just how the system works. Next slide. Okay, so with that, we'll maybe move again to the breadth, up and coming trends in medtech. We talked about what happened in the last 10 years. Now we'll talk about how data and AI are transforming healthcare in ways we could not even have imagined a decade ago, right? What I showed you is what happened, but then now the world is like, it's exponential scaling is what I would call it, right? There's been a data explosion, right? The sheer volume of data coming from healthcare, from electronic health records to wearable devices, is just staggering, right? That this data is crucial for identifying patterns, monitoring patients continuously, and enabling more accurate diagnostics. Think of it like we were assuming what the healthcare world wanted by shooting into the dark. I won't say dark, right? You're talking to surgeons, you're talking to cardiologists, but then now you exactly know how the systems are being used in the field. They're connected. So now you have data to inform you how you can make it even more better, right? So with that, the role of AI is now going to revolutionize diagnostics and outcomes research. It's particularly impactful in medical imaging, where now we're learning that algorithms can detect diseases like cancer with more even higher accuracy, right? So, like I said, volume of clinical data, the vast amount of clinical data that's coming in, allowing for comprehensive
Hello.
patient monitoring.
Anu,
Yeah,
sorry for interfering you.
go
Hello.
ahead.
Can I ask you a question?
Can we hold on to we are almost close to the end of slides.
Okay.
Can we come to the
Fine.
question at the end?
Okay.
Thank you.
No worries, no worries. Yep. Happy to take questions at the end, yeah, like you said. So, volume of clinical data, right? Managing vast amount of clinical data allows for comprehensive patient monitoring. It helps again with early detection of health issues, but it also enables proactive rather than reactive healthcare. I mean, there's a theme here, right? Everybody's trying to do the same thing. They want to help us to live a healthy life. So opportunities of better healthcare. So I think this data is great, but I think where a lot of the medical technology companies and big companies and small startups, as you will probably see in India and the US and other countries in Europe as well, there's a lot of startups in this space, right? It's all about collecting this data, structuring this data, analyzing this data, right? Because the only way for us, at the end of the day, everybody wants to do the right thing. They want healthcare delivery to reduce cost to the patients. You don't want to spend crazy amount of money when you figure out that there's something that's wrong with you, right? They want to improve overall care quality, help help the doctors, but this means that we need to know how to harness that data, right? That's where most of the world is right now, right? Figuring out, oh God, there's a lot of data, yes, but how do you use it effectively, right? So, like I said, a lot of startups in the space, a lot of big companies trying to figure out how to get there. So, with that, let's move to the next slide. I think we're close to the end. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so this might be very relevant to some of you. I did put the slide up, but I want to make sure, even though we talk about AI and big data, that we kind of come back to why engineering, fundamental engineering is important, right? Developing ultrasound, I'm going to use ultrasound as an example, but ultrasound is not the only thing here. You can think about X-ray, CT, a lot of other medical technologies we've just talked about, right? It's a multidisciplinary effort, right? Electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, software, computer science, biomedical, even IT, right? Because IT is an enabler that's going to help all of these other functions, right? EE involves designing the circuits that process these signals, manage power, control the transducer. It's a core of ultrasound technology. I'm going to use the application I'm familiar with, but mechanical engineering, right? Physics, the physical design of ultrasound machines. I left out chemical here. It doesn't apply to my field, but when you think about biotechnology and biochemical, you can think of it there too, right? It's like the mechanical engineers are the ones that ensure devices are ergonomic, right? Sustainable, that transducer are optimally placed for accurate imaging. Software, I mean, you can see that's explosive, right? Software controls everything in the imaging field, how images are captured to how they're displayed. User interfaces make it easier for clinicians to operate the machines effectively. Systems biomedical, this is about integrating all the components into a cohesive system. Biomedical engineers ensure that technology meets medical standards. You probably have heard about ISO, other standards as well. Very important. In the US, we have FDA that do audits, right? And perform seamlessly in clinical settings, right? And then I left out a couple of other ones, only for the lack of PowerPoint space, but I'll talk about it. Clinical science engineering, right? I talked about how there's an interface between the doctors and the engineers. This is an interdisciplinary field, right? You can't become a clinical science engineer just out of the gate. There's a lot of background and the clinical domain is required. So you could be one of these other engineers, and even chemical as well, right? But then you have to come in and understand the product and architecture, right? An EE, or a biomed or a software engineer or a chemical engineer can grow into this role after gaining exposure to the customers and the clinical domain. So I would say clinical science requires a couple of years in the industry, right? And then, of course, we talked a lot about data and AI. These are emerging fields, but I will put a but there. It only augments the traditional engineering. My observation is just that learning AI or ML without having some of the fundamental skill set makes it hard. I mean, AI ML has a lot of applications in other fields, right, where you can directly jump in. I think in the medical field, it makes it really hard to bring value to product development without some of these core engineering fields. So I'll just mention that here, right? So that's just a guiding light.
Right.
Okay. With that, maybe we can go to the last slide. So beyond like technical skills, right? Important of soft skills. We all think about, okay, how can one have a growth in our career? How can we impact humankind better, right? A lot of it is technology and technical skills, but a lot of it is human skills if you think about it, right? Communication is key, right? Like if I can't talk today or be able to express myself and understand the audience, then I'm not going to be effective, right? So communication is very key in explaining complex technical details to non-engineers, right? Or even discussing results with patients. Teamwork. Anywhere you go, doesn't matter if it's medical, if you don't bring a collaborative effort or a mindset, it becomes very hard to thrive, right? So engineers, medical professionals, professors, technicians must all work together to achieve common goals. Problem solving, right? So you could be the best engineer on the field, right? Or you could be someone who wants to learn all this. Challenges are going to be inevitable. If always come up with people who have that are able to come in with an open mind, even when there is a technical glitch or clinical issue, ability to think critically and logically and find solutions, even in situations of emergency, right, will do really well is the read that I've seen. And then empathy, right? Empathy is in the middle of everything, right? And in any situation, any company you go, startup or big tech or even other industries, addressing the needs of the customer, whether patients or others, you need empathy, right? Empathy creates a positive environment, improves patient outcomes, but also empathy also allows you to work with your colleagues better. When they are not doing well, how do you help them instead of being in the victim mindset? So these are important, I'd say, soft skills. Technology is important, technical skills, but continuing to have that soft skill is such an important aspect if you want to grow in your career. So with that, I'll just close maybe my one-way presentation talk and open it out to the audience.
Yes, it's wonderful talk. I mean, I think you covered quite a base. I mean, short but crisp, really good. So yeah, now we're open to questions. So there's somebody who wanted to ask a question, so perhaps they can start first.
Hi, Anu. I'm Kalyan from EC department, and happy to have you here. And really, it's like a wonderful session. Even though it is a late night for us, we feel very happy to have you here. And I don't know whether it is right or wrong. You said about data and AI, right? And most of the academicians, they are working with data here, and they may do research in identifying breast cancers with the images what they have got. And will it work? My question is whether it would definitely help in real time applications. On paper it is okay, but my question is whether it works in real time applications.
Yeah, no, I think that's a wonderful question, Kalyani. And Kalyani, right? I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I address the question. So that's a wonderful question. I think if you go and just do a quick Google on all of the companies that are doing breast AI imaging, you'll see that it is real, right? So I think we need to evolve it even more. But quantification of anomalies in breast is already out there, right? AI is going to just help you to ensure that what we're reporting as an anomaly is really the anomaly, right? So it only helps us with better precision. So these are, especially if there's research happening in the space, and I do know that there is, right? Universities are all plugged into that. Bringing it into the industry it's very important to bring these things down to the industry, but not all the research is also commercializable, right? I'll also put that other. We have to ensure that we use enough patient evidence and objective evidence to show that the algorithms that the universities and academic centers are working on are really going to help patients, right? So definitely a field that we need to continue to push, right? But like I said, without objective evidence, right, a lot of these things will not come to real time, and that requires a lot of this efficacy proving, like I mentioned at the bottom of the slide here, right? So yeah, good question.
Yeah, thank you, Anu.
Anybody else who wants to ask a question?
Hi, Anu. This is Menaka from ECE department. I think Santosh. Yeah, Santosh, you can just proceed. I'll ask later.
Yeah, probably after Santosh, Menaka, you can start, and then I have a couple of questions I can also see.
Yes, okay. Santosh, over to you, ma.
Yeah, I just want to know, how is the scope for data engineering in this field? Any idea?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good question, Santosh, and thank you for the question. So data engineering, right? If you think about what data engineering is being able to utilize data, the data that you probably are getting it, harness it, right, temper it, and then being able to use it in a way where it is helpful for the clinician, right? So data engineering is helpful in the field, right? Because like I said, right, where the world is moving now is being able to take the data that's coming from the field and being able to understand a lot of the difference between what is good data and what is noise, right? So depending on where you are in the data engineering field, right? Are you in the field of helping to anonymize the data? Are you in the field of being able to use some of the modern tools to provide quantifiable metrics with the data to some of these front-end engineers, right? Because these are the people who are going, and clinicians are the people in the industry that are going to be using the data. So data engineering is definitely an important field. But what I would say is, along with learning all these tools where you know how to use the data and temper it, I think understanding some of these application fields and where you want to plug in as a data engineer is going to be very important, right? Just coming in as a generic data engineer, I think that'll be okay for the first 2 or 3 years when you jump into the industry, right? You might go into a non-medical industry, right? You might go into the defense industry. You might go into engineering is applicable wherever. But what I would say is, like I said, it's one of those fields like clinical science where just knowing the tools and how to harness the data is not enough. Understanding the products, understanding how your data, why you need to actually do data engineering and who are you actually helping is going to be key. So whenever you step into any field, right, with data engineering, make sure you understand the big picture, right, and how you can be of help. Of course, data is going to be useful for any field. I'm not going to say no, but these other factors matter for it to be useful. I hope that helps.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Anu.
I'm just going to add one more point to Anu for Santosh. I came across this article by Dr. Bala Pasela today on LinkedIn, which talks about AI. Interestingly, what he says is that what makes a great AI model is not the model itself. It's the AI engineer with the domain knowledge to curate the right data, select the best model, train and interpret the AI model results. Especially in healthcare domains, the robustness and trust are more important metrics than just accuracy, sensitivity, and specificity. I mean, I think that makes the point.
That's a really, really good way to summarize it. Yeah.
Menaka, ma'am, we'll take the next question.
Yeah. Hi, Anu. This is Menaka. Actually, it was really a good session. We really enjoyed, it was very crisp and very neatly given. So my question is, as Nitin told, all of us are working with data, particularly in healthcare domain. So data is very important. We are taking what we are doing is we are taking data from some standard websites and we are doing some AI models. We try to explore the thing and calculate all the parameters, whatever Nitin has told, like accuracy, sensitivity, specificity, and other things. But whether that is enough, like whether it is, they are giving almost 98% accuracy and so on, but whether that is sufficient for healthcare application?
I think that's a really, really good question, Menaka. Now, maybe a question for you is, where are these inputs coming from? Are you working with any of the industry experts, or is this for, I guess, as you're building these, AI models and trying to drive accuracy, where's your touch point with, the
Yeah,
problem?
actually, we are building some AI models. Like ourselves, we are taking some CNN model and we are modifying it. And data we are taking from some standard website like Kaggle and other things where we are having plenty of medical data. But my question is whether that is accurate to exploit it in healthcare.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really big bloated question, but I can give you an answer there. That's a really good question, though. Thank you for the feedback on also the presentation. So maybe I'll start with Kaggle's a great site, right? I mean, there are some really good sites where you actually do get good asks and information. But I think being able to, I think your question is more leading in the sense of, okay, we know that there's AI algorithms have to meet specificity and accuracy, but how do we ensure that these make the light of the day with the industry, right? What I would say there is there's a lot to it, right? There's benchmarking. Industry, that's why I asked you whether partnership with industry leaders is something that the college is actually connected to, right? Because they provide insight into the current industry challenges, regulatory hurdles, and unmet needs, right? There are advisory boards and industry panels, right? I'm not sure if the SVCE is connected to any of that. That's where regular feedback from clinicians and engineers and regulatory experts come in, right? One way to get these models out is by pilot programs and field testing, right? Deploying AI models in clinical or industrial settings for real world testing. That is where the connection needs to be, right? There's one aspect of, okay, here I'm able to prove something, but until you put it into the ocean, right, in the clinical or industrial setting for real world testing, then you can identify the gaps between the academic theory and the operational practice. Then only you can make sure that your models are more robust and scalable, right? So I would say that's the first thing, right? The connection, making sure even if you don't have the industry connection, being able to be connected to the industry panels and advisory boards. I can throw a few out, right, for the medical industry. Similarly, I'm sure defense has this and other industries in the semiconductor too. That's very important, right? Because you don't want to be creating models in silos. The other thing is focusing on the regulatory and compliance standards. Your models have to comply with FDA or CE marks in Europe and India as well, guidelines for AI in medical, right? Those are changing quickly, right? So we have a lot of regulatory body members in our company, right? Industry adoption hinges on regulatory approval. Without that, we cannot get this to the field. So if you're designing models with compliance, right, not just specificity, compliance in mind, again, I'll go back to the advisory boards and industry panels. They're the ones who are going to be able to tell you what is in compliant versus not, because that industry is changing very quickly, right? And these panels know how fast they're changing. They have experts in them. So then the third point that I'll make is beyond academic validation, industry adoption requires clinical validation. Engaging or partnering in clinical trials, I'm not sure how much that's happened, right? How there needs to be a way for, happy for me to share some of clinical trials mediums that are happening in India that help demonstrate efficacy in real world setting, right? A must for regulatory bodies. Bodies will not say, okay, you can use this algorithm just like that, right? So I can imagine you want to partner more with industry because a lot of this exists in the industry, right? Or companies. I'm not sure how you can do this without the help of these bodies and industry. So these are important for you to get those algorithms out. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Anu. Thanks for your detailed explanation. We'll try to exploit it. Thank you.
And happy to share some, like I said, right? This is sometimes it feels like we're kind of left in the forest, right? To navigate it, you may need to know some names of advisory boards or industry panels that support academic centers. I think it's important for you to have those connections with them. I'll share some of those.
Sure.
Absolutely. I'll be happy to share it with the group. I'll coordinating it.
Yeah.
Any questions? I have a couple of them. I'm going to switch tracks from data science to ultrasound, especially in medtech rather. Do you see any other technology replacing ultrasound or supplementing ultrasound in terms of for medical applications?
Oh yeah, no, that's a really good question, and I think, I mean, ultrasound itself has a lot to do, like in the space, right? Like you said, but there are interdomain. I would say that supplementing, maybe first what I will talk about supplementation, right? Already ultrasound is not working by itself, right? It's, if you think about medtech, think about interventional cardiology. The patient goes in, you take an X-ray, right? And then you also have interventional devices where you have to put a catheter into the body. With ultrasound, you cannot see how the catheter is moving inside the body very precisely. You have to use multiple imaging modalities. Like if you go into the OR and if you observe, like I said, these are very important to do as you move, if you get an opportunity to work in a medtech company. Watching things, going to actual clinical demos, you'll see that multiple images are actually, multiple modalities are working together. X-ray, CT, ultrasound, right? So there's not just one imaging technology that works, right? There's multiple ones that are augmenting each other for us to be able to impact healthcare in a positive way. However, ultrasound is not the only imaging technology, right? Like you said, there are a lot of other areas that are up and coming, emerging trends, right? Which photoacoustic imaging, you may have heard about it, combines ultrasound with laser optics, right? And tissue absorbs pulsed laser light, and they emit ultrasound waves. Is there a potential to replace, right? It's complementary to ultrasound.
Yes.
It offers better molecular imaging, definitely, right? Photoacoustic imaging is better with molecular imaging than ultrasound and can visualize, I would say, oxygen levels in blood, tumor markers, which ultrasound cannot do, and even detailed vascular structures. So I'd say it shows promise in both cancer, oncology, and cardiovascular imaging. Current limitation of photoacoustic imaging, if you ask me, is high cost.
Yes.
Complexity, extremely expensive. So when you think about industry, you're thinking about patients paying for this, not just the government, right? You can't introduce technology that's high cost, right? And then MRI, you all know, MRI is, although Philips does both MRI and ultrasound, they're competing in its own nature. MRI is magnetic fields and radio waves, right? That generate detailed images in soft tissues. It's superior to ultrasound in many ways, right? Because it doesn't give you the same, ultrasound doesn't give you the same soft tissue contrast as MRI, right? Especially when you go into neurological, musculoskeletal, and cardiovascular imaging. So limitations, again, MRI machines are high cost, right? They're big machines. Ultrasound is more point of care, portable. You can move the system around, right? For bedside diagnostics. You probably have also heard about optical coherence tomography,
Yes. OCTs.
Right? So it's called optical coherence tomography, light-based. It's mainly light-based imaging technique, high resolution, cross-sectional. You can use it for eyes, ophthalmology, cardiology, potential to replace niche, right? OCT is superior for microstructural imaging like retinal layers or coronary plaques, but lacks the depth and penetration that you need with cardiology, right? Making it unsuitable for even abdominal or fetal imaging. So each one of these, yes, there's potential, right? And I touched on elastography, which measures tissue stiffness. That's an ultrasound, but also a standalone technique, right? Elastography is revolutionizing liver fibrosis. People with a lot of liver fibrosis, it helps with tumor characterization. So there is a lot. There's terahertz imaging. You've probably heard about that, right? Right, and where you're looking at terahertz levels, high resolution, again, shows promise in oncology, but depth penetration has limitations, right? So clinically viable. So yes, I can share a lot. There's a lot out there, but cost, systems engineering is about optimizing cost, what get out to the field, what can be useful versus, hey, here's a bunch of engineers dabbling in technology, but it's physics projects that never go out the door.
True.
Right? There's a lot of imaging applicable, but it's a upcoming field, right? There are a lot of there's a lot of front end, I'll say, advanced development work going in this space.
Right. I work with a company, we work on terahertz imaging, so I relate to what you're saying. So another question, something a little more personal. Could you just tell the audience about your career path and how you reached the place you are right now, especially in such a deep tech space?
Yeah, no, I can start off by saying I kind of navigated my path. I never coming out of college, I never thought, oh, let me just go into medtech, right? Like nobody thinks like that, right? And nobody knows where they want to go. I'd say always be curious and a continuous learner, right? Maybe my path was graduated in 99, and then my parents are from Singapore, so I was an internal transferee, so I didn't really try too much for companies in India because I know I was not going to be there. I went from my grandma's house to college. I was a day scholar from Ananagar, so it relates quite a bit to some of you, right? So, and then I went to Singapore, and I feverishly, I kind of looked at all my friends who already landed jobs or were on their way to do their masters with their GRE to US. And I was here sitting for 3 months looking for a job and getting frustrated, right? And because Singapore was a new place for me. And then I applied for a couple of companies. I was lucky enough to get into HP in the fiber optics division, not in medical. I went in as a product design engineer, as an electrical engineer, because my background was electrical. So kind of did started off in test engineering, right? Good field to stand, I'll say test or supply chain gives you a field of what R&D designs that may or may not work and throw on the wall over you, right? So I kind of learned how to debug issues. I'd say start humble, right? Learned a lot. That's kind of my path, right? Like where I learned how the defects of the design, and then moved into product architecture in fiber optics. So mostly you've heard about Cisco and switches and high speed bandwidth and all that, right? So basically, SONET and SDHM and all that, right? So all the high speed links that were being laid at that time through the transatlantic in 1999, 2000, 2001. So I was kind of in that space. Really enjoyed it. Moved into R&D, and as I was moving, I always tried to understand the big picture, as I've been telling, right? Understand the product, understand the space. You should be able to talk about the product, not just about what you're working on, right? Try to connect with people, learn, set up those times. Then kind of as I moved into the US, jumped into HP, where cardiology ultrasound was the focus in the eastern side. But in my career, I've done supply chain, I've done service. I wanted to try a lot of different areas, not just engineering from a traditional engineering perspective, right? So service is more about field service engineering, right? And then supply chain is more about operational engineering, right? How do you save? That's where you learn business. How do you save money? How you cannot be so expensive, right? How you have to be able to make a product that can actually see the light of the day, right? Then I was fortunate enough to have good bosses, good leaders who were willing to help me through the path. But and then eventually moved into R&D to software, managing the software engineering for one of the point of care ultrasound spaces, and then eventually into systems, which is kind of ties a lot of things. But also, like I said, right, I've always been curious, so didn't stay in the path of just ultrasound. Jumped out to robotics the last 2 years, where I learned a little bit about orthopedics. I managed their R&D and M&A division for all of emerging robotics, knees, hips, and spine surgery. Very different field, right? Again, technology for the betterment of human health. Always try to stay in the medical field because I found that I wanted a purpose in life. Everybody wants a purpose in life, right? You spend almost 60 hours a week. This is a field that I thought would help, but through the way I'd say help coach a lot of people within my organization and also outside, where in nonprofits where I've helped or I've seeked for, I feel like everybody brings skill sets to the table. You, me, everybody around. It's just that finding that area that makes you feel passionate. And that's kind of what was my path, right? Just feeling passionate about something and seeking, continuously seeking. And then when you figure out, even here, right, I'm still seeking. how can I make life better? What are things I can do? To keep asking those questions, and then when you find that passion meets the skill set and the organizational fit, you're in the right place, right? But you keep having to seek that and evolve.
Right. So we got a comment from Minako ma'am saying it's really inspiring.
Thank you.
I mean, the floor is open for more questions, so if we can take a couple of them if it's okay. I guess, yeah, I think it's more or less, lovely talk today. I mean, we covered a lot of topics, but really, really interesting. So nice.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. Thank you for taking your time. I know it's late in India, and you've been accommodative to the time, so I really appreciate it. And feel free to share the slide deck, Nitin. And if there's any questions about some of these, I heard a couple of questions about AI models and how we can work on the right things from a data engineering perspective. Happy to connect to any of the industrial panels that may be useful to the academic centers, right? Like SVCE especially. I think those industrial connections will help. So happy to do that. Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, definitely. So what I'll do is I'll be the wire media and help people connect with you. So not a problem at all. Definitely.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think we'll close the session here. Thank you so much, Anu, for your time. I mean, I know there's a lot of time difference between US and here, but despite your busy schedule, really appreciate your time for the talk.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anu.
Thank you, Anu. We'll stay in touch with you.
Of course. Take care.
Yeah, thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye.